Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire, and I'm really excited to be a guest here on Concord 9th today. Concord 9th is one of my favorite new companies, and I really am impressed by their creative and innovative products that they've been coming out with lately. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I use their Hugs die, along with a few of their other products, and especially those calligraphy stamp sets, so that I can get that calligraphy look, even though I can't do calligraphy myself. So let's go ahead and get started. So check this out. This set of dies from Concord 9th creates this interlocking interactive card. So you just take those letters and you hook them together and you have a fun card design and you can decorate it however you want. And the word Hugs is always there in the center. For my card example, I'm using a piece of 5.5 inch tall white cardstock by 11 inches long. So you can use a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock to cut this. So again, it's 5.5 inches tall. Now I will link at the end of this video to a card where you use a 12-inch long piece of paper, but some people don't have that. So be sure to check that out and I'll explain the difference between the two. So I'm taking a piece of tape here and I'm just putting it on the back of each of these. This is so that when we position our card or dies just right on the cardstock, they won't move. Now this is the other thing you'll need for this. You'll need a piece of scrap cardstock that's 7.5 inches long. It doesn't matter how tall it is, just make sure that it's 7.5 inches tall. This will make creating this Hugs interactive card very simple. Okay, so now I have my white cardstock, and remember that's 11 inches long by 5.5 tall. Now I am going to start by positioning the HU over there on the left. I'm going to position that up against the left edge of my cardstock. Now you'll notice that I am using the grid background that I work on, my grid pad, to help me line this up straight. However, you could use a straight edge or a T-ruler for this if you want to. So I'm going to tape this down so that the H, that edge of the H, is really close to the edge of that cardstock there. Now that that die is set up there on the left, I can take my guide and put it right up against it. So I'm just going to slide that under so it hits the cutting edge of that straight line. I'm going to go ahead and tape that in place. And now I can put the other die to the right of it. And I'm going to put that right up against the die. So what's happening is I'm making sure that these are spaced 7.5 inches apart. You could just measure it if you want to, but I really think it's easy to have that guide in there to make sure it's just right. And I got this trick from Greg over at Concord 9th. I'll link to his video where he shows how to do this. Okay, so now I can remove my guide and save that for future, and I can go ahead and die cut these. I don't have the extended platform, so I am just going to have to die cut each end individually. So first I'm going to do the HU, and you'll see that this cuts beautifully, cuts the straight line and the two letters for me. So you can see that there. Now I can just flip this over and cut the GS. Again, at the end of this video, I will link to Concord 9th's video where they show how to create this, but with a 12-inch long piece of cardstock. That will result in a slightly wider card, which you'll see in a moment. But I'll be sure to link to that too. It's definitely worth checking out. Okay, so now I have my card cut. We just need to do some scoring. Now I do my scoring in the little ledge of my trimmer here, but you could use a scoreboard. But what you're going to want to do is do a score line from either end, it doesn't matter, at 1 7/8. So you'll see there I'm going to 1 7/8 and I'm going to score that. And that's the only scoring that you need to do. So I actually wrote down 1 7/8 on my guide here so that I can remember that for the future. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this over and crease it nicely. Now for the other one, we're going to wing it. Instead of measuring it out, I think it's just better to just interlock these and then find where to score it. So you see that little cut there and the little cut here? Those are what hook together nicely. So I'm just going to hook that U up to the G. It's kind of hard here to do because I don't have that second crease done yet. Now that I have them positioned, I can just line up those edges, put them right up against each other, and slowly press down. Once I have it set where those two edges meet up nicely, I can go ahead and crease the other side with my bone folder. And there we have our interlocking card. This is such a great base, and you can do any kind of stamping or embellishing around this, many ways that you can use it. And today I'm going to do an inked background. Now my card ends up being only 3 3/4 wide by 5.5 inches tall. Remember, I'll link to the video that Concord 9th did where they end up with a 4 1/4 inch wide card. But you need 12-inch wide cardstock for that, and I know not everybody has it. Okay, I had done two examples here. One, I cut it down to be a square, but I'm going to show you that card on the left with that beautiful striped inking in the background. This is so easy to do. To do this, all you need is some sort of masking tape. I'm using some Scotch tape here. This is Post-it tape. You could use washi tape. You could use masking paper, anything you want to mask off an area. I'm first masking off the entire back of the card, so only these front flaps of the card are showing because that's the only place I want to put ink. Now I'm going to take 2 pieces of Post-it tape that I'm going to reuse many times. They're a little bit longer because it helps hold the card in place. And I'm going to mask off just stripes that I can add color to. I'm using my ink blending tool and Distress inks. The reason I'm using Distress ink is because they blend so nicely and come in beautiful colors. However, you can use any ink colors you want here or any ink brands you want here. I'm using an ink blending tool because I find that gives the best blending, and you can use those Ranger ink blending tools with whatever inks you may have. So now I've removed those 2 pieces of tape, and I'm going to put the 2 pieces down in a different location, being sure to overlap a little bit with the other so we get 2 colors on top of each other. It just creates more stripes of colors. So the first color I put down was Mowed Lawn. This is Twisted Citron, just 2 different shades of green. Now you'll notice I'm not taking much effort at all to blend these. I just want to put some color down quickly. Now again, you want to make sure that you do some overlapping because that allows you to look like you have more colors than you actually have. I used quite a few colors on here, but you really could do this with just a few colors. I'm creating straight stripes here, but you could do diagonal stripes. You could even use a border die, maybe like a scallop border, to cut the edge of your masking tape so that you have scallop stripes. You can do anything you want here. So that next color I used there was Cracked Pistachio. And now I'm coming in with Peacock Feathers, which happens to be my favorite. Now this time I'm going to go right up to the edge of that G. I don't want to ink up my word hugs, so I put that masking tape over it so that I cover it up. So now you'll see where these 2 colors overlap, the Cracked Pistachio and the Peacock Feathers, creating another color. So really only used 4 there, but it looks like I used many more. And when that dries, that'll intensify and look really nice. So now that I'm done with that side, I'm going to switch to the other side. I'm going to start there at the bottom with that Peacock Feathers because that's what I was using on the other edge, and these 2 will meet up in the center. It just helps to give a continuous look. As I mentioned, you could use any inks for this, and you can use any ink blending tool that you may have. There's sponge daubers, there's makeup applicators. You could even use your finger to apply the color along here. You really don't need to spend much time doing this. So moving along, just shifting my masks here and there, and notice I'm not measuring how far apart my masks are. I'm just kind of varying it so that I have different widths of stripes. That color there was Mermaid Lagoon. Now I'm shifting it again, and this time I'm using Blueprint Sketch, which is a great vibrant blue. And then finally, I'm finishing off with Chip Sapphire, which is kind of like a navy color. You could use softer colors if you want a softer color background, but I really wanted to go bold with this. Okay, so now I wanted to add some more stripes to this, but I was out of colors. So this is a trick. I'm coming in with white pigment ink and a blank empty ink blending tool here. So just a clean foam. And I'm putting a little bit of white ink over some masked areas. Now you'll notice this first time that I did it, my stripe is completely crooked. So I'm going to remask it and re-ink that again and make sure that it's straight this time, just making that stripe a little bit wider. Now I'm using a white pigment ink here because what's going to happen is pigment ink sits on top of the paper and stays wet for a little bit, so it kind of mutes down the colors in certain areas. Now this will stay wet for a while, so you want to make sure to kind of wipe away any of the excess ink or heat set it right away. That's why you see me wiping it away with a dry cloth, just so I don't smear it as I'm working. And you can see those soft stripes that I'm adding to it. It just adds a little bit of interest. White ink pads, a good white pigment ink pad, is great for a lot of techniques, and I like the Hero Arts Unicorn White, and that's what I'm using here today. So I went ahead and added some white stripes here and there, again just randomly doing this, and I did it on both sides, so you can see it looks like I have even more colors than I originally started with. Now before you remove the masks on the back of your cards, make sure that your hands are clean, just wipe them off really well, and there you have a perfectly clean back with gorgeous color on the front. Now I'm going to make sure to heat set this. This will make the colors nice and smooth and also make sure that we don't smear any of that white ink. So think of all the backgrounds that you could create with masking and ink alone. It really opens up the doors for some great colors. You can do rainbow, anything you want. Okay, I wanted to show you how I finished off these cards. I have this Concord 9th stamp set that goes really nicely with this Hugs die set. And I'm going to stamp the word sending right above it, making sure to use my anti-static powder tool first so that the powder doesn't stick to any of that ink on the background, even though I've heat set it. So I'm using Versamark ink and I'm going to stamp sending, and then I'm going to add white embossing powder and heat set that. That way the sending is bright white, just like our Hugs sentiment. I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure how to embellish this, and I decided to not embellish it at all so we could keep the focus on the color and that fun interactive design. So instead, I just decided to stamp 3 hearts from another Concord 9th stamp set, and that was just enough to add a little bit of interest to the card but not distract from everything that we have going on. To finish this off, I wanted to make the Hugs word nice and sturdy. So I took the dies that I showed you before and I cut them again from some white cardstock, and I'm just cutting the letters HU and GS. I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of these and then glue them right onto our card on top of the letters we already have. This just doubles up those letters so that it's sturdy when the person opens and closes the card. Now again, this card is 3 3/4 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall. On another example that I made, I cut it to be 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, a little bit of a smaller card, and I thought it'd be fun to hold a gift card. But both of these have that fun interlocking Hugs feature. Now, since I can't get enough of creating colorful backgrounds and I had all my supplies out, I went ahead and created 2 more cards using a different Concord 9th die. This time I'm using a diagonal masked stripe pattern. So I'm just using Distress inks once again, but use whatever inks you have. Now remember, at the end of this video, I'm going to link to another video I did a few weeks ago where I did stamped stripes that overlap and use different colors of inks and white pigment ink to create a similar look. But if you don't have those stripe stamps, you can just do masking like I did here. Again, after I heat set the colors on this, I went ahead and added some white stripes on top of the colors. And check out the beautiful background that you get by overlapping those inks and the white inks. Now I'm keeping the card simple from here on out. All I'm going to do is die cut a sentiment from the center. It's a You've Got This die from Concord 9th. I think that's a great sentiment. I'm actually going to use the negative and positive pieces of this so that I'm going to create 2 cards from that one background. First, I'm going to take the negative space and glue that onto a piece of white cardstock that is slightly smaller, and I'll put that onto a card base. Very easy to do. Now we have the little letters themselves that we can glue onto another card. Now I have all these little pieces and I wasn't sure of the spacing. So what I did is I die cut the sentiment again from some scrap paper. I'm going to put that down temporarily over my white background. Now I can put adhesive on the back of each of the letters, and I'll take the letters and kind of fit them in like a puzzle piece into the open areas. This helps me to position those letters just right. I could have created this card first and used the colorful negative space as my guide, but I didn't think of it and I had already glued that one down, so that's why I had to die cut another from scrap paper. Once you have all of your letters in place, you can just carefully remove that negative space, and there you have another piece ready to go on another card. Now, I think the best thing about this background technique is that you can check out your ink pads and see what needs to be re-inked. That was huge for me today. I got to re-ink any of them that were dry. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to show you one more thing that I'm very excited about. The calligraphy that you see on these envelopes, I did not do. I stamped those. I am so excited about this. My friend Christina Werner has the most beautiful handwriting and does the most amazing calligraphy. I didn't get that talent in life, so I am really excited to find stamp sets that allow me to get the look of calligraphy by just stamping. These are from Concord 9th. They first came out with the lowercase. Now they have the uppercase. And check out how easy these letters fit together. They're very easy to stamp one next to each other to get a continuous look. Now I'm using these to stamp my names on my envelopes, and you can just put the address below it. I'm also using them for personalized cards. I can't get enough of these stamps, and I can't say enough about how well designed they are to connect the letters. And no, Concord 9th didn't ask me to say that these are so great. I just found that they stamped amazingly well, and you can see that in this example here. So if you're like me and you don't have the talent of calligraphy, but you love the look, you might want to check out these stamp sets. They definitely are worth the money. Okay, so that wraps up this video. Sorry it's so long. Once again, I always do long videos, but I wanted to share with you these fun products and these fun techniques. A big thanks to Concord 9th for letting me be a guest today. I'm very honored to do so, and if you have any questions or are interested in these products, be sure to check out their website. Thanks for watching.